Hello, everyone, and welcome to our streaming session. In today's streaming session, we have the pleasure of having Miss Barbara Hall, and she is from the Department of English and Teaching English as a Foreign Language from Georgia State University and Perimeter College. In today's presentation, she is going to talk about macro skills in action, and she's going to talk how to work with them within the communicative approach in today's classroom. Barbara is an old friend from us. I mean, she's visited Uruguay like for the third time already, and we love her a lot. So she's a great professional, and I hope that all of you have not have, but enjoy the presentation. And if you have any questions, please type them in the chat, and we will ask Barbara those questions. So with no further to say, Barbara, thank you very much for being with us today, and enjoy the presentation about micro skills in action. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Aldo. It's a pleasure to be here in Montevideo talking to English teachers across the country. I have been an English teacher all of my academic life for the last 30 years, working in a variety of settings from college classes to high school classes to middle school classes, some elementary, and then just ESL classes for non-native speakers. And so I have a lot to bring to you today, and especially I want to say that a lot of the information I might have are things that you know, but maybe it's time to think about them again, maybe in a different way. And I hope you can at least get one or two bits of information, maybe a new technique, maybe a new way of thinking about it, maybe some theory that you learned 30 years ago, but now you want to think about again in your teaching. I hope what I have to say is applicable to your classrooms. I'm going to be talking today about macro skills, which is something we all know about, the receptive skills, listening and reading, and some communicative activities, and then the productive skills, speaking and writing. And there's a little bit of interplay between some of these skills, and also mentioning viewing and representing. I want to especially talk about active learning and noisy classrooms, which is something maybe you don't get in school that is an important part. I hope we have time for some closing comments and suggestions, and any questions that you might have, please feel free. I also want to mention before I get started that I have had a chance to look through some of the English teaching books that are used here, and am so impressed with the level of work that the teams have done to put these materials together. They're really top-notch, and compliments to all the team. So let's get started with macro skills defined again. I know you know what they are: reading, writing, listening, speaking. Wanted to just mention here that they're very key. They're the largest skill set that we have for particular contexts and learning English. We call listening and reading the brain input skills, and speaking and writing the brain output skills, though we know there is a lot of interchange between all of them. The receptive skills, as we know, listening and reading, productive skills, speaking and writing. Here's just a diagram of the interplay between all of them, as you know. It's really hard to think about teaching one skill without including other skills. Also in the literature, there are the skills of viewing and representing, which bring us to the digital age and reading technology and viewing lots on technology. So let's get started with listening and components of listening. Several variables are at place, different levels of vocabulary, of course, between beginning, novice learners and more advanced learners. Another component of listening is rate of speech. Perhaps as I'm talking, it seems too slow, perhaps it seems too fast. And we know that rates of speech influence and impact our listening and our students' listening. Also, another variable is reciprocal listening or non-reciprocal listening. Reciprocal listening, of course, is a speaker and then someone speaking back. So both are listening and both are speaking. And non-reciprocal listening is simply all one way. That might be a recorded lecture. That might be a reading passage that the teacher gives or assigns. It might be a radio show that's broadcasted. It could be any variety of things. Now, in this talk, we want to talk about some of the activities that are more communicative. Listening can be all one way and not communicative. So even at an early stage, grades first, second, and third primary, students can do listening activities. For example, bring me the clock, bring me the desk, bring me the paper, bring me the pencil. And so they are listening to commands and then acting on them to show understanding. Also, the 5W kinds of questions. What is this toy I have? Where is our book? Question answer things that either can be answered by all students or individual students. And then simply retelling a story or a short story, depending on the level. A fairy tale, a common story that you might read or just respond and have them retell that. So those are some of the things that you can do at a younger stage. For older students, again, you're more advanced in terms of decoding, comprehension, interpretation. So you may have short videos that use common language that you are working on, common vocabulary. You might use short dictations, guided listening. And I see a lot of those kind of activities that are in the textbooks that you have. And then, of course, games. And I know teachers are very good at games. And one game I particularly like, and my students also liked, was what we called a telephone game or gossip. And this can be done certainly in lots of small groups where you have a short phrase or even a sentence, often silly, often ridiculous, maybe one that uses a particular rhyme scheme, and you start going around the circle and seeing what you end up with. This is what creates that noisy classroom. And usually students have a lot of fun with that, especially with the misinterpretations that they have. And it creates a kind of nice, relaxed atmosphere. And I want to make a footnote here, say something. I am not going to be talking at all about assessment of these activities. I'm going to be talking about different activities that you can be doing. And the assessment part would come at a different stage. But these are, I'm trying to introduce some interactive kinds of things to liven up classes. Maybe there are things that you've tried, maybe you want to try them again. So, and part of that is, oftentimes we think of listening as it all comes from the teacher and of what the teacher might say, and then wanting the students to repeat exactly. So here, here is the comic that says, can you repeat the part of the stuff where you said everything about all the things I have to remember? I mean, listening shouldn't be just a one-way thing. It needs to be interactive. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Now, to something with both listening and speaking. How can they work together? Now, a lot of the language and games and pair activities, they encourage us to learn, speak the language, and listen to what others have to say. Of course, that's important. We want to have comprehension with what is being delivered. One way to do this that is a fun way is with songs. And this is not, again, it's not a new innovative idea. You've done them before. You probably have your favorite songs. And one thing I notice about Uruguayans in general is they love to sing and they love to express themselves. Every place I have gone, restaurant, stores, I hear so much American music. I mean, I can't believe how much English music I hear. So you can take a song, and I just picked this one out of the air, Beatles song, Love, Love Me Do, because it has a lot of repetition. And of course, it has the words again and again, but it also then is a time where you can do it in a fun way with words that are common, that words that students can learn easily and have fun with. Another example is, for older students, it's a party in the USA, and I have the words by Miley Cyrus on the screen. And one of the things that I like about this and why I chose it is because it does have a lot of slang in it. Am I gonna fit in? The fourth line down, am I gonna fit in? We see the words wanna and gonna so often in readings. We hear them. My college students in Atlanta, Georgia, at Georgia State University are convinced that those are words because they see them so often in text. And, so they are a part of the language. And it's good to know that there are reductions and what there are reductions for. But again, here, there's a lot of context. Songs are a wonderful way to have both listening and speaking and practicing the language. And of course, it's going to make for a noisy classroom. So I hope your neighbors next door in your classes don't mind. So on to reading. Again, another receptive skill. Things that we know about reading. Two factors that have great influence on the reading ability of learners. And first is, what is that second language proficiency? And what is the first language reading skill? So there has to be some kind of connection between the ability of students to have reading and vocabulary in the first language for that to translate to the second language. So already we see how reading is a more complicated kind of thing. It involves getting meaning from and putting meaning into. And, of course, lots of the traditional kinds of things we look at with reading, identifying main ideas, assigning meaning to words, constructing meaning at the sentence level, and then relating that to the reader's prior knowledge. That it's a very complicated thing. But there are ways that you can break it down and also make it communicative and interactive. So some advice about what not to do in classes. First of all, just don't hand out a reading without any context and without a discussion of it. And don't simply have a silent reading with multiple choice questions. It may seem like an easy way to have the class in control, but it is not a good kind of activity for getting interaction and getting interest in that. And what to do, and some of the things that you can do with reading, is a high interest topic for them. What do your students want to know about? Is it Taylor Swift's engagement? No? Is it soccer team updates? So you can ask them the kinds of things they might be interested in. And before you even hand out or bring to the classroom a reading, what do they know about this? What's their prior knowledge? What's their opinion about it? And there you can begin to develop that initial vocabulary for that reading that they may end up seeing in the reading. What are some of the high frequency words that might come in the reading? Talk about them first, write them down, but don't spend an hour putting all those words on the board, just a few of them that they might see. And of course, as professional teachers, you would pick the kind of reading that is the right size for that particular level. After reading, oftentimes the teacher wants to then tell the answers. But before you talk about the reading, break the class up into groups, 3 or 4, or even pairs, and have students share one piece of information from that reading, show where it came from the reading. Find out first what they got from the reading, what they understood about the reading. I think that, again, encourages discussion. It also levels the playing field, that students who maybe don't know as much can get the answers from someone else without it feeling like it's a test or an assessment. So again, and some communicative ideas to think about with reading. I also wanted to say something that I have learned quite a bit about, that development includes the ability to comprehend and use both listening and speaking skills, because most of the time you need to hear a word before you can say it. You need to say a word before you can read it. And I'm talking about reading it out loud. And you need to be able to read a word and understand it before you can write it. So it's a very sophisticated kind of thing. And it makes reading and the teaching of reading tricky and difficult for both the teachers and the students. And so just a few things to think about with your choice of reading, and also how you approach giving that information and then sharing that information. Now, you can, whatever the level and whatever that particular topic might be, You can pick a reading or write a reading even. This one doesn't have any mistakes. Generally, I like to pick some that are more natural sounding. But this, of course, is a short reading that might recycle some of the vocabulary, sisters and brothers, family. Generally, I like to have students read out loud, recite it, only asking, of course, for volunteers for that, never putting anybody on the spot. Maybe they would not know in the second to the last sentence, has grown old. Maybe they wouldn't know that. Maybe that grammatical structure is too hard. But again, you're looking holistically at the meaning and the information that is part of what the student wants to communicate. At a higher level, I picked this reading that I use in my own college class, College Success and Sleep. I certainly think it is part of high school success and sleep. And this is just part of the article that talks about the habits that students have at night and how little sleep then impacts their performance. And before I even begin with this reading, I survey the students about, well, how much sleep did you get last night? And of course, it's always shocking what students have to say. You realize that they're coming to class with only 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and it begins to be a discussion first, then before the reading information comes to them again. So sort of always having a warm up, always finding out what they know before the reading, and then again, a discussion that follows, some communicative activities that you can do. So we talked a little bit about speaking already and using songs, of course, for communication, but I want to give a few more ideas with what you can do in the classroom. So in primary schools, especially reciting things to master the main sounds and the rhythms and intonation, this happens quite a bit in the early years. And again, as I mentioned previously, can also be something that you do with songs that are readily available, or nursery rhymes. And one fact about the elementary and the beginning years is that they are really good about sounds and practice. They don't have the fear of saying things wrong that older learners do. So you want to make use of that and have them practice the sounds, the rhythms at an early age. Some communicative activities, and I've seen a lot of these again in the books, showing a family photo and talking about it. From my experience abroad, students love to talk about pets. If they don't have a pet, they like to bring their stuffed animals in and describe them, telling a story about their life or about something that they know, explaining games that they play or activities, singing songs, doing different role playing, or doing interviews. And all of these different activities could be broken down over several days. You can have role playing go on in different groups in the class at the same time. And so just some ideas to get students talking and using the language. So writing, of course, probably the most difficult of the macro skills. I've been a writing teacher for 25 years. I love to teach writing. but it is not what the students like to do all the time. So what goals do we have for school writing? Well, to write clearly, convey a message, communicate ideas, feelings, experiences, and to understand it's reflective. In other words, that they can show in reflection what they know, what they have understood from a reading, or what they have to say about a particular topic, or they can reflect on the learning process and how they feel the class is going and how they're feeling of being in secondary school is, or many ways that writing can be reflective. So some of the ideas, and I hope you can see my little boxes in the screen, but writing in pairs or in a group, here are some ideas for communicative approaches. So you can start with names and notes for a message board, favorite foods. You can start at the word level, even with index cards, what they know, what they can write. You can use pictures, of course, to create a story. And I know this is a very common thing in elementary. Students can write notes to each other. Maybe they have information that they want to share in secret, and they can practice writing. And these are things maybe you don't necessarily have to collect or grade, but getting them to practice writing. One idea that I got from an elementary teacher that I had observed was writing a sentence a day story. So as not to be overwhelmed by having to do beginning, middle, and end of an original story, writing it over time. Writing a shared story, maybe two students in the class want to work together on a story that they talk about and then write, or even a small group. And then another writing activity is writing a letter asking for a special gift for your birthday. I think I always used to get my own children to write a letter to Santa, here's what I want. They were not complaining about that kind of writing. But a lot of writing can happen in small chunks. It doesn't have to be in terms of an essay structure or even a paragraph structure. Writing development happens when we do it. And so it is important to develop those small skills to work up to bigger skills. And one thing I want to just mention here about holding back on correcting. I've worked with a lot of teachers with writing and teacher training situations. And most of the time when students write something, teachers immediately grab that red pen and want to correct it. So here's an example of a draft of the paper I got. Let me read it. And the task was to write about a day on your vacation. First, we got up at 8. We had breakfast. Then we ran in the beach. We played soccer and volleyball. Then we had lunch. We went out to Restaurant Susan. Afterwards, we went to Pizza Sun. Finally, we went to the diner. Now, I see a lot of positive things in that piece of writing. I see more positive than negative, actually. The student has a sense of sequence. Mm-hmm. The student uses transitions first, then afterwards. That's pretty amazing. The student has a sense of this happened in the past. We see all these past tense verbs: got, had, ran, played. has a sense of sequence and addressed the task, which was to write about a day in the past. And I find that when we give praise to students with kinds of things that they are expressing, and whether that is in writing or in speaking, when we hold back from correction and give them praise on what they're doing well, then they will give us more, which is the point. We want to get more from them. We don't want to have them just be quiet and stop. I myself, as a Spanish speaker, intermediate level, when someone tells me that my Spanish is very good, wow, do I start talking a lot more? But if someone is correcting my verbs, then I stop talking. It's a very human thing. So especially at the beginning levels. But I also use the same strategy in my upper level writing classes. I tell them what they're doing right and what's good about their writing first. And I spend more time on that than telling them what they did wrong. Just want to put that out there. So some of the new things that are happening with macro skills, and that's, viewing and representing, looking more at media literacy, visual literacy. And again, teachers are really excel at these kind of things. Projects that involve visual organizers. And also it's not just putting a diagram or map or visual organizer together. It's understanding it and talking about it and have students questioning that, looking at charts, family trees. An interesting idea that I witnessed in another class I observed was a timeline where students put important dates of their own life, whether it was a quinceañera, a particular family reunion, a graduation, that they put the events in their lives. And some of the events, of course, were not so happy and cheerful, but they were important events. And then sharing these kind of projects with others in a group. And not so much all the time that one student to the whole class, which is always intimidating, but in a smaller group setting where students are practicing. The point of this is using the language, practicing the language, and not correcting, because the usage, the communication part really has to come first. So common sense practice for each class. These are, again, things you know. You want to start with a warm up with, as the students are coming in. You want to have an agenda where you're letting them know what will happen, what's the overall plan of the class. You want to do whatever activity that you have in place, hopefully with that activity that you think of teacher talk as being perhaps only 50% of the class and student talk 50%. I think that we seem to think that we're the ones that need to be doing all the talking all the time. But having activities where the students are talking and listening and have all of that active engagement is important. And then the last point, providing a closure, a few minutes, what did we do? And that closure should not be the bell, the end of the class. It should be what you want to bring to close, maybe asking them, what did you get out of class today? Or even have a short writing on an index card that they pass to you, or on a little sticky note that they write a few words, and those things do not take long to a teacher to look at and assess. And then one last note, importance of noisy and messy classrooms in English language teaching. Especially, I think, when you're being observed. It's good to have an active learning and noisy class. It means several things for teachers, and it is not an easy thing to do, to have a noisy and messy class. You have to get used to a high level of interaction, because that's a positive thing, in my opinion. A high level of noise, things that happen unexpectedly with that level of, or some level of chaos. Things, and that means the teacher has to be thinking on his or her feet all the time. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. It really keeps us fresh, keeps us going. And the realization that things can go, but maybe not as planned. And why is that a good thing? Because we learn by doing, we know to change things up. We know that something could have been altered to make it a little bit better. Maybe we didn't have the right kind of materials that we needed for that presentation. But all of those things, a high level of interaction, high level of noise, thinking on your feet, they're all positive in the language classroom. It signals engagement of the students, and that's really what we want. We want them to be engaged with the language and engaged with teaching. So I want to end the session with perhaps any questions or concerns, or even complaints, disagreements that you may have about the topic. You might want to tell me something that, or tell all of us something that you do in the classroom with one of these macro skills.
Well, Barbara, actually, there are no questions in the chat, but I think you left us with a lot of food for thought in order to keep on reflecting about macro skills and the way to implement and to work with those macro skills in a very communicative way, which is the biggest challenge that we all have in our classroom. So thank you very much, Barbara, for your presentation. And we are going to share the link of your presentation, and you are going to become viral after we share this link, because due to the hour, due to the time of this session, not many people could be present, but many are going to ask questions in the chat, and we can answer those questions in future presentations you have. So
I would love that. I would love
Yes.
that. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about some of these ideas, and happy to continue the discussion.
And you have there Barbara's email if you want to talk to her. Thank you very much. And we are all done for today. Thank you.
That's it. Yes, the broadcast stopped.
I'm not sure your contact information was shown at Receptive. You can have it there published if you want.
And